All right, we're moving on to wide receivers, and we got a few of them. What Michael Pittman at Baltimore? You like him 4 more than the experts do. You have him sitting at 20 right now.
Yeah, he's just been the definition of a target hog. I was low on him coming into the year. I didn't think this team was going to throw much with Anthony Richardson, and it's been the exact opposite. In fact, the 10th most passes over expectation in the league right now, playing at the 3rd fastest pace in the league right now, and Pittman's been the biggest beneficiary of that. 26% of the targets in week 1, 39% of the targets in week 2, and he's played really, really well with the work he's got, 24 and 14 fantasy points in those first 2 weeks. And whether it's Anthony Richardson, who has eyes for him, whether it's Gardner Minshew, who also might even be an upgrade to Anthony Richardson in terms of the matchup for Michael Pittman, not in terms of real life-wise and explosiveness of the offense as a whole, but Minshew slings the ball probably more accurately than him. And so I really like Pittman to continue building on this. I think he's a great buy low, given that he was so low ADP entering the season. I don't know that people recognize that he's been a true fringe wide receiver 1. He ranks right now as a top 12 guy in PPR leagues so far on the points he's put up. And given that negative preseason narrative might linger in some leagues, a great buy and certainly a must start, in my opinion, Michael Pittman.
Right now, we're looking at Jordan Addison going against the Chargers. We talked about this potentially being an offensive shootout. You got him at 27, 6 better than the experts. I mean, honestly, despite the fact that the Chargers have proven they can give up a lot of points, Addison has looked really good this year.
He's looked phenomenal. 2 touchdowns in his first 2 games as an NFL starter. The annoying part, KJ Osborne's playing more of the snaps, 94% of the routes. He's the every down guy, whereas we only saw 66% of the routes for Jordan Addison in week 1. But the bigger news was 78% of the routes in week 2. I don't care if he's in there for the pass block, the run blocking snaps. That doesn't matter to me. The fact that he's a near every down player when they're throwing the ball, and we know this team's going to be throwing a lot against a Chargers team that has been getting blitzed all year by passing games. I mean, absolutely demolished so far. Obviously, we saw Tua and Tyreek just go bananas in week 1, but that then followed up by Ryan Tannehill actually looking competent as an NFL play caller, signal caller there. So by far the most points allowed to wide receivers at 49, 282 yards given up to wide receivers specifically so far this year. I mean, that would be a high number to an entire passing game, but just wide receivers, 2 touchdowns a game also surrendered to wide receivers. I think Jordan Addison continues his rookie streak, gets into the end zone at least 1 more time this week, and it's just so much clearly better than KJ Osborne, who I like as a player. I do. This isn't a KJ Osborne hate fest. It's just that Addison looks so damn good already as a rookie. So I could see that eventually flipping to Addison getting the 90% of the routes, and that could happen as early as this week when, as you said earlier, both teams desperate for a win, shootout-style atmosphere. I think we get a huge Jordan Addison day this week.
Gabe Davis, the daddy, back in the good graces of the Roto Street Journal guys. He's at Washington, wide receiver 32, 6 spots above the experts. Anything to say on Gabe Davis that hasn't been said?
I mean, the guy just had a huge game, and he seems like people do not trust him yet. And I understand that after last year, but we did caution this in the preseason. He had a high ankle sprain that he tried to gut out throughout the year, and it made him a significantly worse player. Ultimately, we see the Daddy Davis right now that has flashed all the playoffs, been a dominant force, just 7 targets on catches 6 of them for 92 and a touchdown last week. Ended up ultimately out-targeting anybody else on the team more than Stephon Diggs last week. 21% of his routes he was targeted there and averaging 11.14 average depth of target. So he's doing what he does best. He had 47% of the team's air yards last week and still had 6 of 7 catches. It wasn't just bombs trying to stretch the defense out. He was making play after play, caught that red zone touchdown as well. I think Davis is back. I think he's here to stay. I think he has to be in lineups because he has that huge blow-up upside, and the floor feels a lot safer with him fully healthy right now.
All right, guys, we're lower on. We're going to keep cruising through. Chris Godwin playing against Philadelphia. You got him at 28. The experts like him all the way up at 23. Significant because if you're playing in 2 wide receiver sets for fantasy leagues, the experts like him as a starter, and you really don't.
Yeah, and I guess this is kind of my subtle way of working in Mike Evans as my higher. 3 spots above ECR, my wide receiver 12 on the week. Given that Mike Evans so far in the year, wide receiver 13 and wide receiver 3 in his first 3 games, 30%, 26% target share. Going to Mike Evans, despite playing the less percentage role, the deep ball guy, Mike Evans. That's what I love about Baker. It's not Tom Brady here. And obviously Tom Brady's a better quarterback and better for fantasy overall. But for guys that are just going to throw it up and let you do your thing, That's much more Baker. And that's definitely why Mike Evans has been benefiting so much more. And Chris Godwin, the higher percentage guy, yeah, you can dump it off and let him do his thing. Now, Baker wants to take the shots. He wants to go for it. And that's resulted in only 20% and 23% target share so far for Chris Godwin. Yeah, he's put up 10 and 11 points in PPR, and it's okay. But wide receiver 37, wide receiver 46, just nothing overly sexy. And maybe this is his breakout day, but I'm just going to keep riding the Mike Evans train. And until this flips, if it ever does, Godwin could be benchable now.
Agree. And I really agree with you on this next one, too. Jerry Jeudy at Miami. Got him at 37. The experts like him at 32. Again, not a huge discrepancy unless you're talking about maybe that puts him on the outside of wide receiver or 3 wide receiver leagues, something like that. But yeah, I'm not too jazzed about Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, if you can say a positive, he made it through the game. He played 86% of the routes and didn't get hurt. And that's really all we have to cling to because he did that and still only put up 6 PPR points. The wide receiver 67, despite, again, playing most of the game, 60% of the catchable targets. It wasn't his quarterback's fault. He just isn't doing much. And he was using such a low 13% air yards last week. And meanwhile, he's contending for targets now, out-targeted by Brandon Johnson, some creature like that. He barely beat him out in the target share. Cortland Sutton, meanwhile, saw just as many targets as well. Even little Jordan Humphrey is out there commanding targets alongside him. So this is like a 4-headed nightmare. Now Mims is also emerging as well. Yeah, and I also just have never really been a Jeudy guy. I think he has some smooth and silky routes, but I've never really bought into it, and it's never really hurt me. I'm not going to start buying in now when he's contending with 4 or 5 other mouths. And I love that this offense looked better. They put up the most points they have in the last 2 years. And still, I just don't really think it's Jeudy going to be the one that rises with this ship. So I have no interest in him being ranked nearly as high as he is a locked-in starter in the expert rankings. I think you at least have to give it some thought, given that he's really never done anything.
You know, that you summed that up really well because we're in the exact same camp on this before. It's like, I've never been in on Jeudy, and I've never regretted it. I've never paid for it. Like, It's never been one of those things like, oh, why didn't I believe more in Jerry Jeudy? It's like I've never been burned by it. So why jump in now when he looks worse?
Exactly.
Eli Moore against Tennessee. This is a big discrepancy for you. You got him all the way down at 50. The experts like him at 39. I tend to be a little more on your side on this one also. I'm not looking to start this guy.
It's kind of another one. I loved him as a rookie. Other than that, though, he's done nothing to really warrant the ranking that I see him getting. 8 and 6 points on his first 2 games this year. Yeah, it's okay. Tennessee, one of the better matchups for wide receivers. So if he's going to get it done, it would be in a week like this. But Cooper remained that main vein, even though he was playing banged up last week. Still was seeing 23% of the targets last week for him. Eli Moore did also see 23% of the targets, but it's just such a, I don't know, the underlying metrics do look okay for Eli Moore. 11.1 average depth of target, 33% on the play action. They're moving him in the backfield. They're being creative, and even still 9 and 7 points so far. So yeah, maybe he does okay. I don't know. I don't buy this offense. I don't buy Deshaun Watson. So even when the underlying metrics look okay for Elijah Moore, even when the matchup on paper says, yeah, probably a guy you have to start. Similar to Jerry Jeudy, this is a guy that I just kind of need to see it from before I want to trust and put him in my lineup.
Hail Marys, we've talked about this first guy and how much you love him. Tank Dell going against the Jags. He's 24% rostered. Make your quick case, even though I feel like you've already made it.
I mean, we already knew C.J. Stroud banged that table for him, as we said, all preseason. This is the guy he wanted. And once he finally got, run 82% of the routes, he immediately became the lead target, 23% with 10 targets. And all he did was thrive, ultimately putting up 19 PPR points, getting a touchdown also called back. I mean, he could have been the wide receiver 3 if he had scored that touchdown and not had it called back because of holding on the offense. So already a smashing debut, continuing to build on that role. I imagine this week, the Jags are going to need points. They're going to be chasing there. So I absolutely love Tank Dell to keep building on that impressive debut. I have him as my flex play right now, given, like I said, Eckler and Saquon out. I'll play Tank Dell. And then I'll go right to a rookie receiver as well. Another one in Jaden Reed, only 18% rostered right now. I think that's got to be closer to 50, even more so after he has yet another big day coming, in my opinion. He dominates the slot right now, and he, only is playing about 67% of the routes, given that he's not in on 2 wide receiver sets. But when he's in there, 33% targets per route run last week. He was the apple to Jordan Love's eye, and he ultimately put up 20 PPR points, the wide receiver 17, 2 touchdowns. Jordan Love has now had 3 touchdowns in back-to-back weeks to kick off his career. And it's not a bad matchup this week for that passing game against New Orleans, in particular, who better at the outside with Marshawn Lattimore on Romeo Doubs. I'm a little bit more worried about that. In fact, I'd rather have Jaden Reed playing that slot, where last year New Orleans was the most vulnerable team among them in the NFL, and they haven't been particularly great there this year either.
What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.